The Galactic Academy of Unified Species was not built for comfort. It was built for survival. Suspended in orbit around a fading blue star, the station housed the brightest and most dangerous minds from across the galaxy. Every corridor carried tension. Every classroom was a battlefield of egos, intellect, and power. And in classroom 7A, one name ruled above all others: Crothall. The Varnock stood like a living weapon among students. Nearly 8 feet tall, his body was layered in black, chitinous armor that reflected the dim academy lights like polished obsidian. His species had evolved on a world of crushing gravity and endless war, where only the strongest survived and weakness was erased. Naturally, Crothall had never known defeat. Students gave him space without being told. Seats around him remained empty. Conversations died when he entered. Even the instructor adjusted their tone when addressing him. No one challenged Crothall. No one. Until today. The classroom door slid open with a quiet hiss, drawing a few curious glances. A new student stepped inside, unremarkable at first glance. Smaller, softer, no armor, no visible weapons. A human. Name? The instructor asked, barely looking up from their console. Ethan Cole, the newcomer replied evenly. A low murmur rippled through the room. Humans were rare. Recent additions to the galactic stage. Rumored to come from a moderate gravity world, lacking natural defenses or extraordinary abilities. To most species, they were an oddity at best, and fragile at worst. Crothall turned his massive head, eyes locking onto Ethan. A slow, rumbling chuckle escaped his throat. "Soft body," he muttered, just loud enough for others to hear. "This will not last." Ethan didn't react. He simply scanned the room, searching for a seat. There was only one available, right next to Crothall. Several students stiffened. One quietly shifted further away. Another deactivated their desk interface, clearly preparing to leave if necessary. Ethan walked straight toward the empty seat, and sat down. The silence was immediate, heavy, dangerous. Crothall leaned slightly, his towering form casting a shadow over the human. "You sit in my territory," he said, voice low and grinding. Ethan glanced up, calm and unreadable. There weren't any other seats. That answer echoed like a challenge. Crothall's mandibles twitched, a subtle but unmistakable sign of irritation. "You will move," he said. Ethan leaned back slightly in his chair. "No." A collective breath caught across the room. The instructor froze mid-motion. No one had ever spoken to Crothall like that. Not once. The Varnock's clawed hand came down hard on the desk, cracking the reinforced surface with a sharp, echoing snap. "You do not understand your position, human," he growled. Ethan met his gaze without hesitation. "Seems like I understand it just fine." The tension thickened, suffocating. For a moment, it seemed violence would erupt right there in the classroom. But Crothall stopped. Slowly, he straightened to his full height, looming over Ethan like a storm about to break. "After class," he said, voice cold and deliberate, "you will learn." Ethan shrugged faintly. "Sure." And just like that, he turned his attention forward, as if the most dangerous being in the academy was nothing more than background noise. Around them, students exchanged stunned glances. Something had changed. For the first time since Crothall arrived, someone hadn't feared him, and for the first time in his life, Crothall felt something unfamiliar stirring beneath his dominance. Not fear, not yet, but something close. Curiosity, mixed with the faintest hint of doubt. News spread through the Galactic Academy faster than any official broadcast. A human had refused Crothall. By the end of the cycle, it wasn't just a rumor. It was an event. Students from multiple sectors gathered around the training arena, their forms filling the observation tiers in a mosaic of species. Winged beings perched along the rails, crystalline entities hovered in silent clusters, and armored warriors stood with arms crossed, waiting. No one wanted to miss this. At the center of the arena stood Crothall, still, immovable, dominant. The reinforced floor beneath him bore faint cracks, reminders of past lessons he had delivered. No one who had stood there against him had ever walked away with dignity intact. Across from him, the entrance door slid open. Ethan stepped in. No armor, no weapons, just the same calm expression he'd worn in class. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. That's him. He's smaller than I expected. This will be over instantly. Ethan ignored them all. He walked to the center of the arena, stopping a few meters from Crothall. The difference between them was stark. Power versus simplicity. Force versus stillness. Crothall tilted his head slightly, studying him. "You had time to reconsider," the Varnock said, voice echoing across the arena. "To understand your mistake." Ethan rolled his shoulders casually, as if preparing for a light workout. "Didn't make one." A few students gasped. Others leaned forward, anticipation sharpening. Crothall's mandibles flexed. "Then this will be brief." Without warning, he moved. The speed was shocking for something his size, a blur of black armor and crushing force. His claw tore through the air, aimed directly at Ethan's upper body with enough power to shatter bone on contact. But Ethan wasn't there. He had already stepped aside. Barely. The claw slammed into the arena floor with a thunderous crack, sending fractures spidering across the reinforced surface. A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. Crothall turned sharply. Ethan stood just out of reach, untouched. "Too slow," the human said. The words hit harder than any strike. A low growl built in Crothall's chest as he advanced again, this time faster, heavier, his movements fueled by rising anger. He swung again, and again, each strike capable of ending the fight instantly, and each one missed. Ethan moved with minimal effort, small steps, slight shifts, precise timing. He didn't waste energy, didn't panic. He simply avoided. To many watching, it looked impossible. To Ethan, it was calculation. Crothall roared and lunged forward with full force, aiming to overwhelm him completely. This time, Ethan didn't retreat immediately. He waited, watched, measured. At the last possible second, he pivoted. Crothall's momentum carried him forward just enough, and Ethan struck. Not hard, not wild, precise. His hand snapped forward into a vulnerable joint between the alien's armored plates. Crothall staggered half a step. Just one. But it was enough. The arena fell silent. The strongest being in the academy had just been disrupted. By a human. Crothall regained his footing quickly, but the shift was undeniable. His confidence had cracked, just slightly. "You evade," he growled. "You refuse to face me." Ethan exhaled slowly, settling back into position. "No," he said calmly. "I just don't fight the way you expect." The crowd leaned in closer. For the first time, this wasn't a one-sided spectacle. This was a fight. The air in the arena had changed. What began as a spectacle was now something else, something tense, uncertain. The crowd no longer whispered with confidence. Now, they watched in silence, eyes fixed on the impossible unfolding below. Crothall circled slowly. His heavy steps echoed against the fractured arena floor, each movement controlled, but beneath it something new stirred. Irritation. Confusion. The human had not fallen. Across from him, Ethan stood relaxed, shoulders loose, breathing steady. No signs of fear. No signs of strain. That unsettled Crothall more than any strike. "You avoid," the Varnock said, voice low. "You delay the inevitable." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Or maybe," he replied, "you're just easy to read." That was enough. Crothall lunged again, but this time there was no restraint. His full strength came down in a sweeping strike meant to end the fight instantly. The sheer force displaced air, sending a shock wave rippling outward. Ethan moved. A slight step to the side. The claw missed by centimeters. Before Crothall could recover, Ethan was already inside his reach. Too close. That wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan's hand snapped forward, sharp, controlled, striking a seam between two armored plates near the shoulder joint. Crothall flinched. Not from pain. From surprise. Ethan stepped back immediately, resetting his position. Again, the alien attacked. A downward strike. Ethan deflected, redirecting the force just enough to throw off its trajectory. A follow-up swipe. Ethan ducked under it, pivoting on his heel. Every movement was efficient, minimal, purposeful. He wasn't matching strength. He was bypassing it. The realization spread through the crowd like a shock wave. He's not trying to overpower him. He's controlling the fight. Crothall roared in frustration and charged, abandoning calculated strikes for raw aggression. Ethan didn't retreat. He advanced. The moment caught everyone off guard. At the last instant, Ethan shifted his stance, rotating his body just enough to slip past the incoming attack. His hand shot upward, precise, exact, striking a nerve cluster beneath Crothall's jawline. The effect was immediate. Crothall froze. Not completely, but enough. A fraction of a second. For most species, it would mean nothing. For a human, it was everything. Ethan followed through. A clean motion. A sharp, open-handed strike across the side of Crothall's head. A slap. The sound cracked through the arena like a shock wave. Silence followed. Absolute. Crushing silence. Crothall staggered a step to the side, his massive form unsteady, not from damage, but from disbelief. He had been struck. Not with brute force. Not with desperation. But with control. With intent. With precision. "You." Crothall's voice was quieter now, edged with something unfamiliar. Ethan lowered his hand slowly, his gaze steady. "You rely on strength," he said. His tone wasn't mocking. It was matter-of-fact. "We rely on survival." Crothall's breathing grew heavier. Around them, the crowd remained frozen, struggling to process what they had just witnessed. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This was a different kind of power. Crothall straightened, his posture shifting once more, but now there was tension in it. Not dominance. Uncertainty. He stepped forward again, slower this time, more deliberate. For the first time in his life. He wasn't sure how to win. And across from him, the human stood ready. Calm. Patient. Waiting. As if he had been in this kind of fight his entire life. Crothall had never hesitated in a fight. Until now. The arena felt different, smaller somehow, as if the walls had closed in around him. Every movement he made was being watched, analyzed, anticipated. Across from him, Ethan didn't move. He didn't need to. That stillness was worse than any attack. Crothall stepped forward cautiously, each motion measured, searching for an opening that wasn't already a trap. "You've slowed," Ethan said quietly. It wasn't a taunt. It was an observation. That stung more than anything. With a sudden roar, Crothall surged forward again, trying to reclaim control through sheer force. His claw lashed out in a brutal arc, aimed to crush through defense instead of bypass it. Ethan shifted just enough to avoid the strike. Not far. Not dramatically. Just enough. The claw hit the ground, sending vibrations through the arena floor. Before Crothall could recover, Ethan stepped in, close, precise, and struck again at a joint, forcing the alien's balance off-center. Crothall reacted instantly, swinging his other arm in a wide counter. Ethan ducked beneath it, pivoting smoothly, his movements fluid and economical. To the watching crowd, it had become clear. Crothall was fighting harder. Ethan was fighting smarter. Another exchange. Another miss. Another precise counter. Each second that passed chipped away at Crothall's dominance. His strikes grew heavier, less controlled. His breathing deepened, rhythm breaking under pressure. Emotion had taken over, and emotion made him predictable. Ethan saw it all. A shift in weight, a tightening of muscle, the smallest tell before each attack. Crothall lunged again, this time faster, desperate to land something, anything. Ethan stepped inside the attack. Too close. Again. The human's hand snapped out, redirecting the alien's arm just enough to expose his center of mass. Then, a turn. A pivot. A perfect use of momentum. Crothall's own force worked against him. The massive Varnock was lifted, just slightly, just enough, and thrown off balance. He crashed into the arena floor with a thunderous impact that shook the entire chamber. Dust rose in a cloud around them. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't speak. They just stared. When the dust began to settle, the image became clear. Crothall was down, not destroyed, not broken, but undeniably defeated. Ethan stood a few steps away, breathing steady, posture relaxed. There was no triumph in his expression, no arrogance, just control. Crothall groaned, pushing himself up slowly. Every movement felt heavier now, not because of injury, but because something inside him had shifted. For the first time in his existence, he had lost control of a fight. He looked up at Ethan, not with rage, but with realization. "You could have ended it," Crothall said, voice quieter than before. Ethan nodded slightly. "Yeah." "Why didn't you?" Ethan shrugged faintly. "Didn't need to." The simplicity of that answer hit harder than any strike. Strength to Crothall had always meant domination, overpowering, crushing opposition completely. But this was different. This was restraint. This was choice. Ethan stepped a little closer, not threatening, not aggressive, just present. "You're strong," he said. "Stronger than most I've seen." Crothall's mandibles shifted slightly, unsure how to respond. "But strength isn't everything," Ethan continued. "Not in a real fight." The words settled heavily in the silence. Around them, the crowd remained frozen, witnessing something far greater than a simple victory. They were watching a lesson. And Crothall, for the first time in his life, was learning. For several long seconds, the arena remained completely silent. No cheers, no movement, no whispers, just the image of the impossible. Crothall, the strongest being in the academy, stood across from a human, and everyone knew the outcome, had changed everything. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. A single, uncertain sound echoed from the upper tiers. Another followed. Then another. Within moments, the arena filled with applause, hesitant at first, then building into something powerful. Not celebration of violence, but recognition of mastery, of control, of something entirely new. Ethan didn't acknowledge it. He simply stepped back, giving Crothall space. That alone confused the watching crowd almost as much as the fight itself. Victory usually came with dominance, with display, with reinforcement of status. But the human? He wasn't claiming anything. Crothall rose fully to his feet, his massive form still imposing, but no longer untouchable. Dust slid from his armored plates as he steadied himself. His gaze locked onto Ethan. Different now. No rage. No humiliation. Something quieter. "What are you?" Crothall asked, his voice carrying across the silent arena. Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly. "Human." A few soft murmurs rippled through the crowd. "That is not what I mean," Crothall said. "You are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most armored." He paused, searching for the right words, something his species rarely needed. "And yet, you win." Ethan considered that for a moment. Then he gave a small shrug. "We don't have just one strength." Crothall tilted his head slightly. Ethan continued. "Some species evolve one way to survive. More strength, more armor, sharper claws. Humans didn't." He tapped his temple lightly. "We had to survive everything. So we adapted to anything." The arena listened in complete silence. "We learn patterns," Ethan said. "We study movement. We make mistakes, then we fix them. Fast." Crothall's posture shifted subtly. Not defensive. Attentive. "If something is stronger than us," Ethan went on, "we don't try to match it." He glanced briefly at the cracked arena floor. "We find a way around it." The words settled deep. Not just for Crothall, but for everyone watching. This wasn't just about one fight anymore. It was about a species. Crothall stepped forward once more. This time, there was no aggression in it, only intent. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his head. A gesture. Small, but monumental. Respect. A collective gasp moved through the arena. The untouchable had acknowledged defeat. Not through fear, through understanding. Ethan nodded once in return. No smile, no pride, just recognition. Then he turned and began walking toward the exit. No victory pose, no final words, just quiet confidence. The doors slid open, and he disappeared into the corridor beyond. Behind him, the arena remained frozen in the aftermath. Students looked at one another, their perceptions shifting in real time. Humans were no longer an unknown, no longer dismissed. They were something else entirely, something unpredictable, something dangerous, and something worth respecting. From that day forward, a new reputation spread through the academy, and far beyond it. Not about strength, not about power, but about adaptability. because the galaxy had learned a truth it would not forget. It isn't the strongest species that dominates. It's the one that learns. And humans learn faster than anyone.